Welcome to another episode. What are you reading? What are you writing? A weekly video podcast features creatives, writers, and readers when we come together to talk about books. I am your host, Karen E. Osborne, author of 4 novels and counting. I am so glad you're here. I think you're going to enjoy our next guest. I am so happy to introduce to you my guest today. I want you to meet Lisa Montanaro. Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Karen. So nice to be here with you.
Oh, I'm so delighted that you're here. So, she's a debut author. You all know what that is, right? But this is it's like one of those exciting times in a writer's life, when you get to open this book, this box of books, and then your book baby is out in the world. So I am so happy for you. Congratulations. This is a wonderful, wonderful moment. And the name of her novel is Everything We Thought Was True, and has received so many good reviews already, even though it's just now coming out. But I want, because you get reviews early as you can. So let me read this one to you. Lisa Montanaro's powerful first novel sweeps effortlessly across decades, pulling the reader along with exquisite precision. I love that. As we bear witness to the family's hidden secrets peeled back a layer at a time, we are reminded of how hard truths from decades earlier continue to haunt us. We all know that to be true, don't we? No matter how much we'd like to think we've moved on. Evocative and unblinking, it is both a coming of age classic and masterfully timely and topical. Like, whoa. And I love the unblinkingly, that it just talks about the authenticity of the writing, how, that you don't shy away
Okay.
from things. So that sounds awesome. I love family dramas, and I do write them myself. So tell us a little bit about Everything We Thought Was True.
Okay. First of all, thank you for that wonderful welcome, and for reading that beautiful review. I appreciate it. So the premise of everything we thought was true. It is family drama, which I know you write also, and it deconstructs a secret that forever shapes a family through the perspective of 3 distinct characters: a father who is desperately trying to be himself, a mother who is afraid of being alone, and their daughter who carries the weight of the secret into adulthood. So
Mhm.
that's the premise.
Yes, indeed. So what inspired you to write this particular story? Was there something in your life? Did the characters just come to you? What inspired this?
It's a great question. I always love hearing, like, what's behind the story, right? The story behind the story. So I started thinking in 2005 of writing some personal essays when I first visited Italy, which is the land of my ancestors. And fast forward, let's say a year, I took a writing workshop with a fantastic instructor named Mary Carol Moore at the Hudson Valley Writers Center in New York, which I know we're both New Yorkers originally. And I started thinking of maybe turning it into a memoir. So it was actually originally inspired by my own family story. And then
Mm.
fast forward about 10 years later, because I did about 10 years of nonfiction writing and publishing. And I picked it up again in 2016 or 2015 when I went back to Italy for a month. You'll see a pattern here. Italy is clearly my muse, right? And I went to myself, I don't think I want to write my family story because all of these sort of ideas kept coming to me and they weren't the real story. And so I started thinking more about it and realized that I wanted to write fiction, and I had never written fiction before. So then I went on quite a journey to teach myself how to write fiction. And I wrote draft after draft and revision after revision, both going from nonfiction to fiction and also having this spark of inspiration from my actual family and then watching it become its own creative work.
Yeah, so we have so much in common there because my novel True Grace was inspired by my grandmother, and I went through the same process. I thought, I'll just write it as if it was a memoir. And I'll just be her and write it as a memoir. And then I thought, no, because I want to put all this other stuff in it. I had to make up stuff and I didn't know everything. And so I turned it into fiction, very similar, but still that root of authenticity, that root of reality. Yeah. So you tell the
I love
story.
that about your grandmother. Sorry, I was
Yeah,
saying I love that about your grandmother's story, and and it's almost like for both of us, it's like the core, the heart, the beating heart of it, like if you're peeling back an onion, like in the middle is that seed of emotional truth, but then everything around it is where all the imagination lies, and you get to make stuff up. So it's kind of a beautiful match. It's beautiful. Yeah.
beautiful match too. Yeah. It was I really loved doing it. Uh, and I hope she's okay with it. She's dead, but I just hope that she's like, it's okay, Karen. It's okay.
I have a feeling she is. She's probably up there going, "You go." Yeah.
So, another thing we have in common is that we tell stories from multiple points of view. So, Lena uh, is in the present, and then
Yes.
her parents, Frank and Teresa, that you were telling us about, are in the past. So, you have this dual timeline going on too. So, tell us about what you like, admire about each of those three characters. And then what are you kind of hoping they'd fix? Sometimes my characters get me annoyed.
Yeah.
How are you hoping they'll grow?
I love that. That's such a great question. I don't know if people ask that enough. So I now can't picture the book without the three of them. When the book first started, it did start with the daughter Lena. And because it's always great to know someone's origin story, like their backstory, and it
Mhm.
makes it more real. But then the voices of her parents kept coming to me, and I realized that, they were pushing their way in. And now that I have the three of them, I kind of can't picture the book without it because their stories are so interwoven. I admire different things about each one of them. So here's how I like to look at it, and it's going to sound strange, but to me, Frank is the pebble. Teresa is the pond and Lena is the ripple in the pond. So she's the
Mhm.
next generation of how the secret gets carried on through the time span of the book is actually about 50 years. So it starts in the late 60s and it ends in 2015. And I think that what I admire about Frank is his bravery in trying to live his authentic self, to try to be his authentic self. It's what we all want, self-actualization. But he's doing it with a lot of barriers that are put up internally and externally by himself, by his family, by his religion, by expectations, by society and law at the time. So there's a lot going on for him. So I really admire his bravery. For Teresa, she is the heart of the book. And she is the one that people just say, "Man, I should have brought tissues." She she really is the heart of the book. She is the glue that holds the family together, which is great. And then Lena is this sort of reflection of what I admire about Lena is that she has to come to a reckoning or a realization as an adult of how she has not healed from her past. And it is
Mhm.
something that, we all have to try to carry our past with us and show it grace, but not let it have power over us in the present. So I admire that she does come to that realization, but damn, she takes a long time to get there. So, so what's frustrating about all of them is there are times when they get in their own way. They are beautifully flawed human beings, and so I hope that everyone sees themselves in each of the characters. And what I really do hope is that readers kind of wind up rooting for all three of them and don't take sides. Yeah,
Yeah. When we love all of our characters, even and they're flawed and they're sometimes they're even bad guys,
yeah,
you know, and that we care about them and we do want to write their story so other people can see them the way we see them.
right.
Yeah, see them the
And
way
have
we
em
see them.
and have empathy for them. So to
Yes.
me, reading fiction grows and breeds empathy. And that's one of the reasons we love stories that bring us on an emotional journey because we want to feel for them. And so, yes, I think the other thing that I like about the three of them is that none of them are angels and none of them are demons. So they're all nuanced, multi-layered, and aren't we all? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. They're real people with, you know, even the worst person I know of has a, has a good side, has things about them. Yes.
Yeah.
Got to make
Good point.
people as real as, because they are real. They are real. So, are you working on anything new now?
Yeah, I am and I'm not. And what I mean by that is I have a premise for my second novel that I came up with last year, so in 2023. And I went to the East Coast and did some university at an archive center and just fell in love with the idea of it. And I love research. I'm a bit of a research geek. And so I kind of went down the rabbit hole of research. And then because I was working on some revisions with my content editor for my publisher, I had to put it aside to get the book ready to go out into the world. The book meaning everything we thought was true.
Yeah.
And so I think in March, this past March 2024, I went to a writer retreat and I revisited the second book to make sure I still loved it, and I do. So I think what I would like to do now is be fully present for my launch and to shepherd this book into the world and into readers' hands and hand them over the Antinori family and savor the experience after having worked on this book for 6 years and then 2 years towards publication. So I want to really savor it. But what I love is that the second book is so intriguing to me that it will be calling me and I'll get my way back there. And right now, what's interesting about the second book is it's three characters again. Clearly, I like
Mhm.
the trilogy, right? But it is one timeline. So, in that sense, it'll be a little easier. So, I'm
Yes.
craving that one timeline. And every once in a while, one of the characters like, well, here's a flashback. I'm like, no, go away. We're not. You can put it in the story as a flashback, but we are not doing another timeline. So I'm sort of laughing. Yeah. So I'm excited to work on that, but I'm also giving myself the space to savor this experience.
I love that. I love that you're giving yourself that space because it can go, that you can almost start feeling like you're on a treadmill
Yeah.
and you don't want that. These are labors of love,
Right.
right? Yeah, so we don't want this. So I love that. And I do recognize how hard it is to do dual timelines. My one that's coming out in March is a dual timeline. And I have to remember, like, where am I? And what and would that song have been playing in that year, or am I remembering something from
Right. Right.
yes, so
You're
it
not
is.
just
It
in
is a
one
lot.
world, like you're building multiple worlds. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And especially like your book, I think also spans several decades. So you're dealing,
Yes.
yeah, it's a
Yeah,
lot,
I
but
got
it's fun.
Justice. Yeah, this one. This is good. This sounds good.
Good.
So, this is what are you reading? What are
Yeah.
you writing?
Ooh.
So, tell us, first of all, I'm curious if there are any writers or stories that had a big impact on your writing style, on,
Ooh.
who you are as a writer.
Yeah, I can think of two. One is going way back. So when I was a young girl, I read The Diary of Anne Frank, and I was a kid at the time, and it was so impactful because it had this global, universal message, and yet a very personal story. And I also think it started the seeds of my social justice activism. And it also started me down a lifelong path of being a journaler. So I started keeping a journal at 8 years old by hand, and I still do. I type my manuscripts, but I still write my journals by hand. And when I was a teacher, a high school teacher for a few years in New York, while I was putting myself through law school in the evening, I taught the Diary of Anne Frank with my classes, and then got to see it
Hmm.
from that perspective and watch teenagers learn about it for the first time. So I think it was a really quite a big impact on me. And sadly, it's now being banned in some circles. And I'm like, no, do not ban the Diary of Anne Frank, right?
Don't
Um,
ban books, period. But go ahead.
exactly, right. Read what you want, but don't control what other people read. Yeah.
Exactly.
But I'd say as an adult, the biggest influence on me has been Anne Patchett. I
Hmm.
have read pretty much every book she's ever written, every personal essay, every memoir. And her writing to me is so beautiful, but so accessible. It's going to sound corny, but when I read anything she writes, I feel like she's speaking just to me. And that is
Wow.
such and that is something I would love. Like if any writer, any reader, pardon me, would ever say, "Hey, I read your book and I feel like you were talking to me," I'd go, "Oh, that's the highest praise."
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
do. I love all of her stuff. Bel Canto was, I believe, her first book that I read years ago, and then I had to get my hands on everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That they feel like they're talking directly to you.
Yeah.
I had the first time I had a book club read my very first book, and instead of asking me questions, they were arguing with each other about the characters. Well, I don't understand why she did that. And the other one said, did you not hear what happened to her in life? And I'm just sitting there and I thought, wow, this is like so cool because
Cool.
I made them real enough,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
These are gifts. These are the things we live for.
I wrote a review. Sierra Godfrey is an author that I love. She wrote a very typical family, pardon me, and The Second Chance Hotel. And I was grateful that she blurbed my book. And when I wrote her a review of her book, didn't know her, I basically wrote that I had a crush on the protagonist's new boyfriend. And she emailed me or messaged me on Instagram and said, like, this is hysterical. And to the point where when I went to Barcelona last year, because the character is from Barcelona, she was like, have you met Javier over there? Are you stalking him? And it became a whole thing. So yeah, when an author knows that a reader is so intrigued by their characters or interested in them that they think they're real, that is really high praise. It's very
Is
cool.
that is wonderful. Yes, indeed. I had somebody write me and say that in True Grace, the love interest is a man named Jonathan, and she wrote. I don't know her, but she wrote a message to me on Facebook and said, "I'm looking for Jonathan. Where can I find him?"
See,
So,
that's just awesome, right?
right. So, is there something you read recently that you could recommend to our audience?
Yes, and it may not be one that people are familiar with. It's called When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. And holy hell, it is unique, creative, powerful, heart-wrenching, fascinating, fantastical, historical, and timely all at once. So it takes place in the 50s, and it's an allegory for McCarthyism and how women were kept down, kept in boxes, kept in thankless marriages and gender roles. And the allegory is that in the 1950s, there was a great dragoning where women left their bodies and became dragons. It is so cool. And it is quite a message that we can use today, even though it's written about a time so long ago. So if you want to read something very unique and very empowering, and it's all told as a coming of age story through the voice of a little girl living through it. So it's really neat.
Wow, that sounds wonderful. When women were dragons, that
When
really
Women Were
sounds
Dragons by Kelly
timely.
Barnhill. Yes.
That's
Yeah. And
like,
it's very unique. I mean, I don't write fantasy
yeah.
and I am just in awe when I read something like this. And a friend told me about it and we have similar reading interests. So yeah, maybe your readers out there would love to check it out. And I'm just getting ready to write my review and put it on Goodreads because reviews are golden for authors.
Yes, please remember that, good people. Reviews are awesome. They're so needed. So tell our audience how they can find you, how they can find your wonderful book, how can they learn more about you, how can they be in touch with you?
Thank you. I appreciate that. So my sort of mother hub online is lisamontanarowrites.com. And people can go on there and they can look at my books page and there'll be a book club kit on there and behind the scenes that you can access. And I have a newsletter called Prosecco and Prose, because of course I'm Italian. And so it's always good to have some bubbly along with your reading recommendations. It's fun. And I'm online on social media under Lisa Montanaro author. No, Lisa Montanaro, period. Not even author. I just realized you could just put my name in there. And I love all social media, but I like the Instagram neighborhood the most. It seems to be the most friendly, positive, very reader focused, but you can find me anywhere.
Yes, I do love Instagram. Is a great all the bookish people on
Yes.
Instagram is wonderful. And Facebook, I find Facebook helpful. I gave up X though. I just walked away
I did too.
from X. Yeah.
I
But
walked away and I replaced X with Threads and Blue Sky,
and Blue
which
Sky.
are much more positive, creative spaces. And like you, I actually really do still like Facebook, especially the groups. The groups are where it's at.
Yes.
Some of these collaborative author reader groups are so beautiful and wonderful, and people are having good conversations. So to me, social media should be social, and in a social setting, you should have a little civility. So when it gets really cranky, I check out. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I hope that all of you are going to follow Lisa. You're going to look on Instagram, her friendliest place, but you can check out Threads and you can check out Blue Sky, you can check out Facebook, but start with her website. Go visit her website, check it out, go to the different pages, find out. And when you do, please leave her a note and say that you met her on What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? Thank you so much for joining us today, and I will see you next week with another wonderful episode and another amazing author. Take care, everybody. Bye.